Good day, everybody. It's Brian. Just wanted to check in here. Continuing on with week 6 of micro reflections for the 21st century. And I'm wondering if any of you have picked up the premise of this and these reflections that we send out in our email newsletter, as well as in some of our other marketing materials. But this is a book of 36 passages, 3 per week. It's really meant to synergize your microdosing experience on your on days. So if you're doing a day on, 2 day off microdosing journey, protocol, routine, ritual, whatever you want to call it, these are meant to really work in unison with those days on as you're expanding your mind a little bit and receiving shifts in perspective, and the gradual process of those shifts in perspective to make meaning from, and to really navigate your life into a state of inner renunciation and transformation. And the first one of these went out on the spring equinox. And if there are 36 passages, 3 per week, 36 divided by 12 weeks, 36 divided by 3 is 12. That takes us all the way to summer solstice, or midsummer, as some of us know it as. And this is really based around one of the founding values of Medicine Box, which is nature, the evolving medium, weaving it all together. And one thing that we really try to instill in our medicine and mentorship online microdosing community is how to get us back into the rhythms of nature, into the cycles of nature. We might be aware of what's going on out there, in nature. It might be raining or snowing or sleeting, or the sun might be shining. And right now it's a beautiful spring day here in North Lake Tahoe, California. But it's really all about bringing that self-awareness into the natural rhythms of nature, wherever you might be, and aligning with that. And a lot of us don't have the ability to step outside and be in a forest, be by a lake, be by an ocean, be on a mountaintop. And we have become so disconnected from nature that it's really important to bring that awareness to the place that we have come from, and that we will all inevitably be going back to. So please join me as we continue in week 6 here, reading from Micro Reflections for the 21st Century. And this one is, don't label interior and exterior experiences. Here I am taking a sip of tea. Spiritual experience is feeling aware, connected, unified with body and mind. It transcends the separation of body and mind, but also self and world, and a sense of oneness, of belonging occurs. Definitely something that microdosing helps us with, to feel aware and then get that sense of belonging with the unification of body, mind, soul, and the world. To obtain and reach that state of connection with the world as a whole, that internal peace, we have to work against this self-righteous urge to classify and divide and just let things be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. So, yeah, Paul, John of the Beatles, I think y'all knew. I think Paul wrote that one. Whisper words of wisdom. Let it be, right? Let things be, because it's not up to us to judge or classify or categorize or polarize or cancel. All those things, just let it be. Stop resisting, forcing, and learn how to understand versus always trying to be understood. So, after all, the only things we collectively, that's the WE, perceive are perceptions themselves. It can be possible to go beyond the categorizations that have been invented by human beings, right? So I'm a CEO, I'm a founder, you might be a mathematician, a scientist, an insurance agent, a real estate agent, a real estate broker, a carpenter, right? A musician, an artist. Those are all categorizations made up and invented by human beings. It's very arbitrary, right? Thought and categorizations. It's like we put these labels on things to like categorize and keep us all separate from each other, right? Like the mechanic is separate from the restaurant worker because the mechanic doesn't know how to work in a restaurant, and a restaurant doesn't know how to be a mechanic. But take all that away, and what do we have? We're just human beings trying to be happy and healthy and go along our merry way as we evolve in this human experience. So categorizations which ultimately fail at some point as they run out of words that are meant to polarize, classify, indemnify, a grand act of separation. So look around, like, where are you labeling yourself? Okay, you might be a mom or dad, okay, a brother or sister, a spouse, husband, wife, friend, lover, all of the things, but at the end of the day, those are just words classifying us to identify with these interior and exterior experience of being the thing. Okay? So now let's take a deeper look into the conditioning that we receive from the mass media, which I call macro media, and then there's this like micro media, which is the social media, right? And look at the dumpster fire of our country. So when I wrote this here, this was in the great weird world of COVID, and there was a dumpster fire of our country, but I felt that this was going to be very timeless, and there is still a dumpster fire of our country going on, but you don't have to be the dumpster fire, right? You can take radical responsibility for yourself. You can do your very best to accept the chaos and trivialities of the world around us so it doesn't steal our internal peace and knock us off balance. Just let things be the way they are and accept them the way they are. And this dumpster fire of our country right now, the internet, yes, the internet, likely what you've plugged in to read this or listen to this right now, being the gasoline that keeps it burning and burning hot with labels and classifications. And if you don't agree with these dogmatic ideologies, you must be the enemy. You must agree with me. You must agree with my belief systems, my value systems. You should not challenge me and put me into a place of cognitive dissonance, because if you do, I am going to be triggered. And if I am triggered in this labeling of my interior experience, I'm going to label that exterior experience one that I don't agree with, that you must be the enemy, you must be bad, and you must be different from me, right? So let's just classify the difference. So now I am the mechanic and you're the restaurant worker. That's it. That's the way it is. How about we just let things be? Because it is nothing more than muffled noise that continues to create alienation among our peers, friends, and organizations. How many people do you know that have separated friendships, working relationships, because we disagree on things, because the macro and micro media is forcing us into a place of like having to make a decision and not really stop and take the time to be discerning or learn how to understand other viewpoints. So if one starts from this point of separation, from exclusion and difference, there is no amount of mental or emotional seeking that will return us to the point of union. So what does that mean? If we start out by going into a situation with people, places, and things from a place of separation, wow, we are setting ourselves up for failure. I've said this before. Are you interesting or interested? So if we go into a situation that we are interested in to learn something new, to hear another viewpoint, we might be able to connect on what? A basic human level of understanding, okay? Not trying to be understood. And if we don't do that, we're setting ourselves up for disaster because there's this point of separation and we are being very conditional in that moment. And the world around us is unconditional. The world and the universe has our back, even though that labeling of the interior and exterior experience does not think we do. So when that happens, there really is no amount of mental or emotional seeking that will return us to the point of union, to the point of connection with someone else, because all we're doing is ruminating on it. We're ruminating on what? Trying to change the person, place, or thing, or not accepting the person, place, or thing from a place of this unconscious lack of awareness of our external surroundings that is just mirroring our internal environment. So what would happen if we sat in stillness and just paid attention as conscious observers, right? Sit in stillness with our self and reflected from a place of compassionate observation as the witness, witnessing our thoughts and our emotions, right? Just letting them go by and not labeling them. Here we go. We're not labeling what we're experiencing. We're not giving it a word or a name, okay? Because it's really based on some illusionary treadmill of the past or an illusionary outcome that we've already established up here before taking the time to be discerning and respond from that place of observation. And what if we tried to understand, I've said this already, more than trying to be understood and didn't use words to label these experiences? Like, what if we actually took the time to try to understand someone else's point of view with genuine curiosity? That doesn't mean you have to agree with the other person's point of view, but just maybe you might learn something. We might learn something together, and by doing so, what does that ultimately do? It connects us and it aligns us because we're already connected in this interconnected, universal thread of humanism. But we don't always consider that because we want to be the one who is interesting, not interested. So what if we just sat there and tried to understand? Again, it doesn't mean you have to agree with the other person, but we might learn something. And in doing so, we raise the levels of consciousness from a place of humanitarianism. And how do we do that? It's easier said than done. But by practicing meditation and microdosing, which I collectively call M&M, a little microdosing and meditation session, we can become more aware of our thoughts and our triggers and the shortcomings that we have developed over our lives and the character defects that we have developed over our lives. And we can gradually just rake away that psychological bedrock that we have kept compounding and compounding and compounding over many, many years of our life. That doesn't mean we need to be fixed or that we are broken. It means we're being more aware of who we genuinely are in order to come from a place of authentic self-expression. So Forget the nouns, verbs, adjectives in mental gymnastics, gobbledygook. That's what I call the gobbledygook, in all this social media. It's everyone's like writing with these big nouns and adjectives and verbs and describing their experiences and who they are and describing their identity and what they do. It's just, it's not great anymore to just be this. You have to be this with all this colorful language around it. So it showcases to someone else your identity that you have created for yourself, which is a social construct of the mind, which is really nothing more than mental gymnastic gobbledygook. And maybe I'm in some gobbledygook right now. I talk in hyperbole and lots of prose and a stream of consciousness, but learn and sit with it in a puddle of awareness as a spiritual moment, for example, right? Just sit here in a spiritual moment versus a political moment, okay? What do I mean by that? So a spiritual moment is like, okay, I'm getting triggered by something that the president said, and it's red and it's blue and it's blue and it's red, and it's the Dems and the Republicans, and it's this policy that doesn't agree with this policy that I think we should put forth in there to make my world better and make me feel better. What if we just labeled it as a spiritual moment? What are we learning from this? Like sometimes our worst enemies and the things that we disagree with that challenge our cognitive dissonance is nothing more than just a spiritual moment, but we have to label it a political moment, okay? It comes from a place of unawareness and this deep yearning to just always change things outwardly so we fit or fill the void of our interior and internal environment. So what if we just sat with that as a spiritual moment versus a political moment, and just maybe we would alchemize a sense of meaning to the universe as a whole. So alchemize a sense of meaning around, I'm just responding and I'm accepting and I'm just flowing and doing the radical best that I can to accept the world exactly how it is, because absolutely nothing happens by mistake in this universe. So we often fail to take into account that we have to create our freedom to choose new experiences. It's not the political, it's not the policy. No one's coming to save us, right? It doesn't matter what president is in office. It doesn't matter, what job you have or relationship you have or car you drive or the amount of money you make or the material things that you possess or the likes and the comments and the engagements that you receive, because no one is coming to save us. But because we think that, right, that we're always labeling these interior and exterior experiences, we take our eyes and our senses off of the cognitive liberty that every human being has a basic human right to explore their own consciousness. And we often forget to create our own freedom to choose new experiences within the moment. And that's a big practice around microdosing. It helps us slow down. It helps us cut through the noise, or what I always say is take the machete through the proverbial jungle that we are all a part of, and just take some time to just slow down and reflect and be mindful, right? And remember, we always have the choice to create that new experience. And to sum this whole passage up, just under 20 minutes, this is a long one. I appreciate you all hanging out, and if you like what we're exploring here, click the link in this landing page here to join our free microdosing community. We really explore a lot of these topics, and it's me with several dozen other people, usually talking about this and getting all different perspectives and viewpoints to help us what? It's very personalized, but very community-centric, so we can all collectively raise our consciousness, raise our well-being, and have the compassion for self and others from a place of observation and not judgment. So Terence McKenna here. What we call reality is, in fact, nothing more than a culturally sanctioned and linguistically reinforced hallucination. Remember what I said about thoughts. They're just arbitrary. It's a very human invention. And sooner or later, we're going to run out of the words to describe all these identities. And what are we going to have left? Nothing but me, myself, and I, and you, and we. So thank you for joining me for another passage here of micro reflections for the 21st century. This was Don't Label Interior and Exterior Experiences. Over and out.